system. Not even beacons.
We are all that's left of our world, our culture, our people.
Strike group, prepare for assault.
Our weapons are having minimal effect on the alien vessel. We must focus on the matter at hand. Elimination of the fleet that destroyed our world.
Homeworld was originally released way back in 1999 and it became an instant classic. It was the first fully 3D real-time strategy game, letting gamers command their very own epic space battles.
It snagged a bunch of Game of the Year awards at the time, which was impressive because it was the first game that Relic Entertainment had ever made.
And now the good folks over at Gearbox have stepped in to give the game a new lease on life, with a collection that includes the original Homeworld 1 and 2 and a remastered version of each.
All systems green. Release crew standing by. What a beautiful sight.
Resourcing online. Construction online. Cryogenic subsections A through J online.
Hex, sadly, I missed out on both of these games back in the day, and you haven't been able to buy these digitally until now.
Yeah, I never played them either, but I can see why they made such an impact. Because for me, as much as I love the gameplay, I just found the story so moving.
Yeah, it hits you right in the feels at times, doesn't it? Which is rare for a strategy game.
As the game starts, we find ourselves learning a bit of the history of the Kushan people, who have long since forgotten their origins. But 100 years ago, they discovered an ancient artifact, which shows the coordinates of a planet located halfway across the galaxy that bears the name Higara, their ancient word for home.
So the whole planet unites to launch an expedition to find this ancient homeworld. They spent generations building a huge mothership and inventing new technologies like faster-than-light travel to make the journey possible. But after they launched the test flight of the mothership, they returned to find their planet utterly destroyed. Now all that's left of their people are those aboard the mothership, and their only hope of survival is to find this mysterious homeworld.
I mean, talk about motivation, and just that moment when they come back and that music plays, I mean, God, it's just genuinely gut-wrenching.
No one's left. Everything's gone. Carrick is burning.
I just needed to get these people home, Barjo. But I think a large part of me was just smitten by the Battlestar Galactica vibe of it all. The last survivors of an entire race, traveling across the galaxy in one armada. I was getting my Commander Adama on big time.
Not every space game is Battlestar, Hex.
Oh, come on, it's pretty much the same story.
There are some similarities, but it is a great sci-fi universe, isn't it?
We've completed decrypting data from the enemy frigate we captured in the Karak system.
As soon as it starts, you can just feel all the lore and backstories they've created coming through.
For 13 generations, we have protected it from the unclean.
Yeah, apparently the original game manual was just a big book of history and stories and all that kind of thing.
That doesn't surprise me. One thing I found quite striking was the fact that there are almost no characters, but there's still so much personality in the ship designs.
I'm taking hit shield. Confirmed. Heavy fire confirmed.
And there's a lot to be said for the great battle chatter your ships make.
I have a bad feeling about this. Yeah, but we can do it.
It feels like there are people on board these ships.
Yeah, that's a nice touch. There is one major character mentioned by name though, Karen Sajet. She's a scientist who sacrificed herself to be integrated into the mothership to essentially become the entire bridge crew. It's a really clever way to personalize the ship and makes you feel so much more protective of it and ultimately her.
And as your armada inches ever closer towards your destination, you learn more and more about the story of your people and how you came to find yourselves half a galaxy away from home. It's compelling stuff.
Oh, for sure, but more importantly, it's backed up with great gameplay. So obviously the fully 3D environment is the game's trademark. You're in space, so you can go any which way you want. Most things do tend to play out across one plane though, but big ships have weak points above and below, so it pays off to try and maneuver your forces cleverly.
At first I found this intimidating, but it's actually a pretty straightforward strategy, and I found moving your ships around was quite intuitive.
Yeah, and I liked how they mixed up your situation quite frequently. Each mission throws something new your way, whether it's being ambushed in a nebula or having to clear a path through an asteroid field. It always keeps you on your toes.
Locked on target.
Which I liked.
It can be a bit slow at times though.
Move order confirmed. Defensive tactics confirmed.
Especially later on once you have those big capital ships that take forever to move across the map.
Group 2 reporting.
Hurry up, guys.
Strike group coordinates locked in. Group 1 standing by. Strike group coordinates locked in.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing a few game speed controls. But the slower pace does help when those epic battles start raging, giving you enough time to see what's going on and figure out a plan without overwhelming you.
Group 1 standing by. Strike group to battle position.
I like how you carry your units with you from one mission to the next. It makes you get invested in your fleet. Every ship you build is a commitment, and every single loss is meaningful.
Guidance failure. We're losing control.
Yeah, losing ships hurts a bit, doesn't it? Most strategy games make units feel disposable. You just collect resources, churn out guys, send them off to their doom, and then churn out some more. But I felt really protective of my fleet.
Yeah, especially because your resources are limited, so if you're not careful, you'll make life harder for yourself later on.
Yeah, you've got to play smart. And I did love using those salvage corvettes. These little guys can scoot into a battle and literally just steal enemy ships. Yoink.
Copy.
Yeah, pro tip, steal as many ships as you can. And how great is it when you manage to nab one of the biggest ships like a heavy cruiser or a destroyer? It annoyed me though how the friendly AI would shoot the ships you're stealing. Guys, I'm clearly stealing this ship. Stop shooting it.
Stabilizers offline.
Yeah, that is annoying. Generally though, I thought the AI was pretty good.
Cabin pressure dropping.
Although in the last mission, for some reason, all my capital ships just decided to spin around on the spot, refusing to do anything that I told them. What's that about?
Space madness.
Maybe. Other than that, I didn't really encounter any bugs.
Of course, that's all just Homeworld 1. Homeworld 2 is a pretty safe evolution without any massive changes to the formula. It's mostly little tweaks, like putting fighters and corvettes into squadrons, rather than having to wrangle them as individual units, or having to use marine frigates to capture ships in the middle of battle, rather than using the salvage corvettes.
Stand by for contact. See you inside.
Yeah, but I don't think there was much they really needed to change, so more of the same in this case is a good thing. Although the story in Homeworld 2 wasn't quite as strong in my opinion, it just didn't have that same epic motivation and drive as the first. But the missions are still fun and well designed.
We also checked out a bit of the original games for comparison, and they've done a good job of tidying up the user interface, and of course adding in loads of graphical bells and whistles. It's actually a bit of a shock going back and seeing that there were no widescreen resolutions. I sometimes forget that back in the late 90s, there was no widescreen. We were stuck with CRT monitors.
Responding.
How do we ever live like that?
I don't know, Hex. I just don't know.
One thing I noticed is that you used to have to wait at the end of each mission for your resource collectors to gather up everything before moving on, unless you wanted to miss out on valuable resources.
Coming home. Resources transferred. Let's go.
And they're so slow. Thankfully, the remastered versions just gather all the resources automatically when you hyperspace out to the next mission. Good call.
They also seem to have got rid of fuel. Fighters and corvettes would actually run out of fuel before,
We're in the red. Fuel low.
but that mechanic seems to be completely scrapped. And I think that helps streamline the combat, but it does make most support vessels a tad redundant. But other than that, they seem to be pretty faithful recreations.
The multiplayer side of both games has been combined into one mode, which is still in beta at this stage. But it all seemed to work fairly well, letting you select which version you want to play.
Yeah, I think this is much more of a single-player RTS though. The pacing just isn't that suited to competitive play. It's still fun, but it's not the kind of game I'd recommend for its multiplayer.
Heavy corvette complete.
Although I do like how you can just hyperspace your whole fleet right up to the enemy.
Initiating hyperspace jump.
Surprise, mothership!
Hyperspace jump complete.
Strike group receiving fire. Support.
And it's good to see that there's official mod support too, with mods built right into the game's launcher. There didn't seem to be anything available at the moment, but looking through the history of mods for the original Homeworld games, you can find loads of mods for pretty much any classic sci-fi that you can think of.
Yes, well, hopefully the community embraces the game and we'll see some of those mods for the new versions. But what do you think overall, Hex?
What more could you want from a remaster? I mean, here are two absolute classic games that were almost impossible to track down that have now been lovingly remastered for a new generation. And they've thrown in the original two games for good measure. I loved it. I'm giving it 4.5 out of 5 stars.
I'm giving it 4.5 as well.